Top of the morning, assalamu alaikum. Comrade salute, revolutionary salute. All right, this is the Underlock and Key Show. This is the Underlock and Key Show. And my name is Malik Alim, the chairman for the Noble Young Lords Party. All right, so this segment right here is called Building Unity Through Talk Instead of Violence. The comrade name is Soso. It just says Soso. All right. In Miles' essay on the correct handling of contradictions among the people, they wrote of melding practice with criticism and discussion in order for our movement and the masses to grow to greater understanding, unity, and strength. The essay explains, when struggling over disagreements amongst political allies, friends, to start from a place of unity, struggle through discussion, and come away with greater unity. For short, we call this unity, criticism, unity. In this issue of Under Lock and Key, we explore how this method applies to the prison environment. How can unity, criticism, unity help counter the typically hyper-violent method of handling disagreements in prisons? The only way to settle questions of an ideological nature or controversial issues among the people is by the democratic method, the method of discussion, criticism, persuasion, and education, and not by the method of coercion or repression. There are often situations behind bars that require first identifying who are our friends, and then we can apply unity, criticism, unity among those people. A comrade in California reported in the Under Lock and Key about their long struggle to build unity across different organizations in the yard at California Correctional Institution. Leading up to a banquet with various lumpen organizations participating, this was done through discussion and peaceful struggle, maintained even through some violent episodes. This is a good example of identifying friends. And among those who may initially be unfriendly and patiently working to build unity. An organizer in South Carolina reported in Under Lock Key on their work fighting lumpen on lumpen violence by holding classes to educate the youth on what it means to have unity. Educational classes are a good form of criticism of political line that doesn't involve attacking individuals' views directly, sometimes making it easier for people to accept the criticism and come to see why they are wrong. This holds true for both leaders and class participants. No one person has all correct knowledge in educational classes. Leaders should also be open to learning new things from participants. It's not always easy to see someone as a political friend when you have past beef with them. Building unity. There is a report from Arkansas about how two prisoners overcame past differences through political unity, and the article From Cop to Anti-Imperialist shows us the sometimes fluid nature of identifying our friends. Someone who was an enemy of the people while working for the police force has been won over to the side of revolution through circumstances in their life that put them in the camp of the oppressed. Finally, the public debate we are having with Zero, continuing this issue of Under Lock and Key, is an example of building unity while engaging in political struggle, one which we hope to build on as we further our alliance with Zero and others. Contradictions with enemies versus contradictions among the people. All right? So, quote Mao Zedong, since they are different in nature, the contradictions between ourselves and the enemy and the contradictions among the people must be resolved by different methods. To put it briefly, the former entailed drawing a clear distinction between ourselves and the enemy, and the latter entailed drawing a clear distinction between right and wrong. First, we must distinguish between contradictions with the enemy and contradictions among the people. And contradictions with the enemy, such as with the prison COs or with the American imperialist government, we are not seeking unity, and we should be clear and straightforward in our statements about them. Criticism of enemies is important because it keeps the revolutionary movement on point. We do this when we identify all the candidates in the imperialist elections as part of the imperialist system. We also do this when we call out white supremacists, behind bars, collaborating with the CEOs and collaborating with the CEOs to attack new Africans. In Contradictions Among the People, on the other hand, Mao Zedong wrote, the essential thing is to start from the desire for unity, right? For without the desire for unity, the struggle once begun is certain to throw things into confusion and get out of hand. This is the opposite of how we deal with contradictions with our enemies. When we run into problems with people who should be our allies, we need to start from the desire for unity. Contradictions with our comrades, including disagreements within our organization, should be approached from a position of unity, criticism, unity. In practice, this means starting from the understanding of where we have unity and that our criticism of one another line in practice is always with the goal of building even greater unity. We should not just throw out criticism for the sake of making someone look bad or turning them down. Criticism must always be with the goal of building greater unity. Sometimes we will not come to agreement over the criticism, but we can at least come to better understanding of our disagreements. Perhaps we can agree on a way to test which position is correct, or further research we need to do. Or maybe we will agree that the criticism is not significant enough to lead to a split, as our areas of agreement are far from more significant. So who are the people? The people are those who we should be approaching as friends, not enemies. Mao Zedong wrote, the concept of the people varies in content in different countries and in different periods of history in a given country. In revolutionary China, Mao was talking about contradictions among those who supposed and were served by the revolution in China. The identification of the people in revolutionary China was relatively straightforward, as it encompassed the vast majority of the population. Identifying who are the people in imperialist countries where we're surrounded by enemies of the international proletariat is a more difficult question. Broadly, the people include those whose class, nation, or gender interests are counter to imperialism, as well as all people who take up anti-imperialist organizing. More specifically, within the United States, the people whose class, nation, and or gender interests makes them potential allies includes the following. Number one, oppressed nation lumping. Basically, an oppressed nation lumping, but what that means is the organization, a street organization or prison organization, aka gangs that are known to do abuse and a whole bunch of repression against its own people, its own citizens, things of that nature. Oppressed nation lumping. 2, the very small proletariat class, mostly migrant workers. 3, petty bourgeoisie from the oppressed nations. Petty bourgeoisie from the oppressed nations, you already know what that is. All right, that's basically, the few that made it. They took advantage of some programs. They studied, went to college and all that. They got elected by the people, but now they there. And when it comes to the council and congressmen, people is like, you do me a favor, I do you a favor, so to speak. So let's say if I'm trying to pass a bill, it's like, all right, I need a signature. They'll give me a signature, but then let's say the next bill they come out with might be some bill taking rights back from my people, and I have to go along with it, so to speak. You know what I mean? All right, petty bourgeoisie from the oppressed nations. 4, youth of all nations, particularly students. 5, others who are marginalized by imperialism and the patriarchy, queer and trans folk. Many of these people could be happily integrated into imperialism, but we should still approach them with the goal of building unity and not as enemies. For the most part, however, when we talk about contradictions among the people, we're talking about contradictions with those who are already on the side of the oppressed, either due to circumstances or because they have consciously taken up the cause of the oppressed, not those who are actively supporting imperialism. Distinguishing enemy lines from enemies. When looking at contradictions among the people, it is important to distinguish enemy lines from enemy. We're all going to take up incorrect ideas and practices some of the time. That doesn't make us into enemies. Even if the line we take up turns out to be pro-imperialist, learning from our mistakes is part of being a revolutionary. Our job is to help our comrades identify their mistakes and to be open to hearing from others when they point out our mistakes. In the essay under discussion, Mao Zedong asks, how should our people judge whether a person's words and deeds are right or wrong? In response, they laid out 6 criteria that applied to a country that was already socialist. We have modified these slightly below to apply to our current conditions. Number 1, words and deeds should help to unite and not divide oppressed people of all nationalities. Number 2, they should be beneficial and not harmful to anti-imperialist struggle. Number 3, they should help to consolidate and not undermine or weaken the People's Revolutionary Organization. Number 4, they should help consolidate and not undermine or weaken democratic centralism. Number 5, they should help to strengthen and not shake off or weaken communist leadership. Number 6, they should be beneficial and not harmful to international socialist unity and the unity of the peace-loving people of the world. The first 3 points apply to all anti-imperialists, and we will propose them as good criteria to use for all people who are building united fronts. The last 3 are specific to communists who are actively fighting for socialist revolution. Communists should apply all 6 points to our practice. These 6 points and the strategy of unity, criticism, unity should be at the forefront as we refocus energies on building alliances and a united Maoist movement here on occupied Turtle Island. The USW Council is also in the process of putting unity, criticism, unity into practice to reach out across the prison movement to consolidate forces friendly to anti-imperialism and national liberation. We will continue to report back on these efforts in future issues of Under Lock and Key. All right. Let me see this one. All right. So the name of that one, right? The name of the article that I just finished reading is Building Unity Through Talk Instead of Violence. This next article, the name of this article is called Combating Gossip and Setting Examples to Build the United Front for Peace in Prisons. All right. So this comrade starts off like this. This will be my full account of my involvement with the organizing of peace between all prisoners, be they independent citizens of this yard or members of lumping groups or organizations. Many prisoners have been involved in the process that will be disclosed. To ensure their safety, their names won't be mentioned in this report. All circumstances are well known by the prisoner population on the yard. See yard, the choppy, and can therefore be verified easily by asking and requesting anyone who receives Under Lock Key on this yard. Before starting, I want to give shout outs to United Front for Peace in Prisons, because I hold your principle and I am inspired by your scientific methods. As a 5%er, I give all due respect to the teachings of the nation of gods and earth. For my free dome and clear sight, which allows me to live in a non-fictional reality, being awakened to the true self, which is righteousness without fear. Also, I would like to thank Under Lock and Key and Maoist International Ministry of Prisons for providing revolutionary education for free, which has taught me how to lead and helped me realize that I am a socialist with a revolutionary conscience. Thank all the prisoners here at California Correctional Institution who assisted me, the numbers, the old Black Vanguard, and a huge part of the new Africans and new Chicanos. I arrived here at CCI in May 2016. Upon my arrival, I introduced myself as a member of the nation Gods and Earth. I met several new Africans that were very negative about the program here, the CO culture, prisoner treatment, and a myriad of other complexities dealing with conflicts among prisoners. The first person I came to know from a non-fictional reality is a member of one of the largest 3 organizations in North America. Our first conversation will become the foundation and conduit for many actions that follow. His assessment of the yard has proven to be invaluable. Though bleak, when he spoke of the mental distress or the mental deadness of our people, meaning the black prison population of the yard, blind, done deaf and blind, with no concept of organization or unity, this comrade is indispensable to the prosperity, growth, and development of this yard's prisoners, or just about every level. His advice is most valuable now as ever. To begin to address these contradictions, I initiated the weekly service for everyone in the yard who wants to attend as a place of unity, education, and true identity resurrection. From proposal to acceptance, it took 1 month. Then from acceptance to being physically scheduled, it took 3 more weeks, ending when we had the first Nation of Gods on Earth service in November 2016. At the same time this was being developed, most people were saying this would never be accepted by the administration of the yard. Doubters included prisoners as well as captains, chaplains, and correctional officers. I personally began circulating my verbal disapproval of two-on-one violence or group violence against one person, simply stating these actions won't be tolerated when acted out against new Africans by other groups, or by other new Africans or new Africans prisoners, nor member of other races who are also prisoners, regardless of charges and convictions issued by the unlawful court system. By my understanding of this position is backed by the Black Panther Party 10-point program demand. This has become the new norm through actions I will now describe. On a day at the ass end of September 2016, at the morning yard of the lower tier, I noticed a dichotomy between a group of Aslan, known as the Number, and an elder from the New Africans. 3 members of the Number appeared to be attempting to jump physically the unknown elderly New African when his cellie physically assisted him, ending the exchange of blows by walking away and descending to the bottom of the yard. All this happened in the direct view of the yard correctional officers without any response. After my initial investigation of the occurrence turned little to no information, I migrated to the bottom of the yard to build and better understand what I had just witnessed. Upon speaking to a New African soldier who we shall call T.Y., me and him decided to get to the bottom of this matter. The elder explained that the Number owed him, and upon confrontation about the debt, verbally refused to pay. So he bought that. That is, when the elderly New African swung his fist, hitting the debtor in the jaw, causing 3 members of the Number lumping group to engage him in physical battle. After the knowledge, me and T.Y. decided to go and confront the Numbers, to issue a formal notice that the jumping of any New African would no longer be accepted, and if we cannot have an agreement, we will go to war at that moment. However, due to the magnetic energy, all the New Africans on the yard mobilized with unity and harmoniously walked as one of the Numbers table, at which time the aforementioned decree was stated to the Numbers. They decided peace was best for the yard at that moment, and minutes later came assured the elderly New African he would receive what he was owed. They apologized for the acts of aggression and the miscommunication. During this time, the correctional officer stayed in the yard position, but many prisoners reported hearing them radio the tower to shoot blacks if violence was to occur. You see that bullshit? Many New Africans felt the power of unity that day and began to positive dialogue due to being empowered by the unity of that event. That day also respectful communication between New Africans and Numbers were established, including beginning dialogue between white nationals of 2 different lumping groups in days to follow, which opened up the door for me to begin to share the principles of the United Front for Peace in Prisons. With both major groups, the NGE membership grew to 23 prisoners of a racially diverse demographic, mostly New African, but Aslan and YTs joined too. I shared white national books out of my collection with the white nation lumping group member, and believe we had strong lines of communication. Alright, over a month later, in November 2016, an issue was made known to me about an alleged thief of a radio, supposedly by a New African who had a history of mischief, named KC. When word got to me, I was told that Aslan were planning to jump the New African. After sharing this with my comrade, it was decided that we would investigate in order to keep the peace. While playing basketball, someone had taken the radio off of the sidelines where items had been set inside owners' shirts. My comrade believed KC to be the culprit, which he denied, voluntarily ordering New Africans stripped down to their boxes, proving they didn't have the property in question. Lastly, and with little fuss, KC stripped, proving he didn't have it. Then all the assets likewise stripped, proving they didn't have it either. The victim still felt like KC was guilty and wanted to fight. KC reluctantly obliged and whipped them, and peace was better established, stating New Africans won't turn down no battle if requested, but peace is desired. That's peace. Almost a month later, a white national who I believe to be solid used our growing relationship to lure KC away from myself, when then attacked him with a huge stone and a pillowcase when his back was turned. Wow. Needless to say, his instant karma manifested. KC was able to thwart this plot against himself and turn the tide with a huge victory over the extreme form of physical oppression and violent aggression. In days to follow, white national politics seemed to attempt to establish itself, with whites telling blacks they could not use pull-up bars near their table. You hear that shit? On hearing this, I spoke with their known leaders, and we all decided to end all attempts at making C-Yard a racialized environment and instead work together on a proposal to help create this yard into an honor yard, vowing to do away with weapon usage and to better establish open lines of communication in order to solve interracial issues without violence. There was an issue which touched home that I must share with you now. One of the persons I must respect was accused of a savage crime against his cellie. At the time, I was allowing him to use my TV and a few CDs, as was two other comrades. Upon his arrest, people began circulating rumors of his alleged guilt. Due to his conduct and our developed closeness, I personally went to those prophesizing against him and told him to stop and desist. While he was being investigated, a white porter came into blame for what was by then deemed missing property that the porter had access to and had allegedly stolen. This was based on the fact that neither my TV nor all the CDs and the CD player made it to R&R. He was blamed and pressured to pay for two of the missing CDs by someone of influence. During this time, I found out that the building officer had on his own taken my TV out of this person's property before he even left the building, along with the CD player. I was asked to protect the white porter by one of the members of the original Black Prisoners Vanguard Party, which I agreed to. Then the correctional officer returned my TV after keeping it almost 2 weeks, which is not just unfair, but it is unlawful and burglary by definition. I didn't know if the white porter was guilty, so I didn't charge him for my CDs, knowing that the comrade was innocent and would be returning. Under threat and fear that the white porter paid a 16-ounce jar of coffee to the owner of two missing CDs. Well, I was right about the porter being innocent and the comrade, because when he came back, the CDs were in his property, which he returned to their owners. The porter got his coffee back, and all the false prophets learned a valuable lesson, and some even apologized for smutting the comrade. Now, I have a monthly unity walk at Yard with all-inclusive New African Peaceful Unity Movement, and I will have my first banquet in February 2017, of which all the leaders of the different lumping organizations have been invited to attend. I will read United Front for Peace in Prison principles at the time and speak on the United Prisoners, its benefit, and how important it is to take initiative in the change movement. All right, and this is the principles for the United Front for Peace in Prisons. Number 1, the first principle is peace. We organize to end the needless conflicts and violence within the United States prison environment. The oppressors use divide and conquer strategies so that we fight each other instead of them. We will stand together and defend ourselves from oppression. Number 2, we strive to unite with those facing the same struggles as us for our common interests. To maintain unity, we have to keep an open line of networking and communication and ensure we address any situation with true facts. This is needed because of how the pigs utilize tactics such as rumors, gossip, snitches, and fake communication to divide and keep division among the oppressed, the pigs see the end of their control within our unity. Number 3, growth. We recognize the importance of education and freedom to grow in order to build real unity. We support members within our organization who leave and embrace other political organizations and concepts that are within the anti-imperialist struggle. Everyone should get in where they fit in. Similarly, we recognize the right of comrades to leave our organization if we fail to live up to the principle and purpose of the United Front for Peace in Prisons. Number 4, internationalism. We struggle to the liberation of all oppressed people. While we are often referred to as the minorities in this country, and we often find those who are in the same boat as opposing us, our confidence in achieving our mission comes from our unity with all oppressed nations who represents the vast majority globally. We cannot liberate ourselves when participating in the oppressions of other nations. And number 5, independence. We build our own institutions and programs independent of the United States government and all its branches, right down to the local police, because this system does not serve us. By developing independent power through these institutions, we do not need to compromise our goals. All right, and okay, and this is the last article right here. It says, join the United Front for Peace in Prisons, not the imitations. Okay? For those that don't know, the United Front for Peace in Prisons was created in 2011 by a council of anti-imperialist leaders in prison, facilitated by MIWIS International Ministry of Prisons. In 2012, one of the groups who later signed on to the United Front for Peace in Prisons initiated what became the annual September 9th Day of Peace and Solidarity in recognition of the brothers in Attica in 1971. While the initial day organized by that comrade may have seen the biggest mass action to date, we have increased the number of prisons in various states participating in years since then. We have also developed an organizing pack that is available to prisoners building for September 9th in their facility. Most of our readers agree that the lack of peace and unity is the biggest obstacle to any real change of the oppressed languishing in America's concentration camps. True indeed. As the United Front for Peace in Prisons slowly grows with time, we have begun to see some copycats, imitations that may appear similar, but are lacking in content. We have underlying key subscribers who are calling us to support the call to action against slavery in America. 1. On September 9, 2016, who have never reported lifting a finger to build for peace and solidarity on that day, we have someone in North Carolina promoting a new movement whose main tenets are peace, unity, and growth, copying the explanations for each point from the United Front for Peace in Prisons. They say imitation is the highest form of flattery, but we want to be clear about why the United Front for Peace in Prisons is better than the rest. What it comes down to is anti-imperialism. While the United Front is meant to be a broad base for unity and is not an explicitly anti-imperialist thing on its own, its founding leadership was. And this is why the independence and internationalism are such important points. The North Carolina prisoner mentioned above sent us a copy of a letter sent on behalf of their movement to staff, literally trying to strike a deal for some petty improvements in exchange for more peaceful conditions and more money flowing into the canteen. It is clear that they dropped the independence point for the United Front for Peace in Prisons. We don't want peace because we're pacifists. We don't want peace in order to get more canteen privileges. We want peace and unity because that is the only way to build power. And with power, we can actually make the world a better place and change things for real. Independence is crucial for change. Independence means not being a part of the existing systems, not being a state-sanctioned and approved operation. Obviously, the state will not sanction something that is trying to change it in ways it does not want it to change. And internationalism is both our source of strength and protection against degeneration. Our strength comes from the majority of the world's people who stand against oppression, and by keeping an international focus, we can ensure that the United Front for Peace in Prisons does not become something that can be used by some to oppress others directly or indirectly. That's true. To help people recognize our difference with the imitators, we use language to focus on the anti-imperialist struggle. Instead of talking about the prison industrial complex, we talk about concentration camps as the modern form of colonization faced by new Africans, Chicanos, Boricuas, and First Nations. Instead of talking about slavery like it's the 1700s, we look deep into the lumpen class and the conditions it faces in the United States today. It is by understanding the modern forms that imperialism takes that we can best find solutions to our problems. Punto final. All right, that said, I'm closing out with the segment of Underlocking Key Show. Comrade salute, revolutionary salute. Assalamu alaikum to my brothers and sisters. Paz para vosotros. Peace be unto all. Pa'lante, siempre pa'lante. Power to all oppressed people. Peace. Positive evaluation always cause elevation. Positive education always correct errors. Peace. One Lord, one people, stay noble.